let's start with introductions. I am Forks. I am the IT admin for IFC. I am the one that made the website and rickrolled everybody into submission. And this is...
I am Martini-Soft. I'm kind of filling in for Drager, who will be over here shortly. He accidentally got double booked. So I'm part of the Warm and Fuzzy staff. That's why I'm wearing the giant bright pink shirt. So if you have questions about the common stuff, you can come ask me.
Alright, so I work for a tech company in Michigan that I won't name nameless because it's small enough that if you Google it, you will probably find it. Let's see. Well, I think that I am a web developer. Obviously that means I make websites. And I work with a team of about 5 people. But some of the best stories I come from aren't exactly from working on the websites, but from the people that ask me to make them. One of these people is a car company called Toyota. Alright, so how do I put this? They are mildly aggressive and tend to change their mind a lot. The way the story starts is that I was an intern for about 2 years. I was making our support site for the company I work for. And one day, out of the blue, my boss says, hey, I need you to make something really quick, really fast. It should be really easy to do. And this is going to be like the first professional project I ever work on, so I'm like super excited and super nervous at the same time. So when I get the requirement sheet, it's basically just a survey app, right? Something that should be super simple to make. And then I find out, oh, we have to integrate it with our main software that does a lot of JSON calls. And for those of you who don't know what JSON is a way that data is marked up and sent through the web. It's a very common thing. So, all right, I have to make the survey app and integrate it with our main software. No biggie, I'll ask for help along the way if I need it. So, as I'm working on it, I find out, oh, this is going to be very dynamic. There's multiple choice, fill in the blank, true and false, and most of these things I have to validate to make sure that nobody screwed anything up. Problem is, I didn't have a way of checking that validation because I wasn't given that. So what I had to do is test it all in Antarctica. So I'm running tests from Antarctica that are support truck lines going through Antarctic snow. So as I'm doing this, I think this is really strange, but it should work in the end result. So I'm baking it, getting some help with people that I'm going along with. And about 1 week before I'm supposed to get it done, I get a new form that my boss hands me and says, hey, there's a couple changes, this should be really easy to make. It was a complete rewrite of everything I did. And I had a week to do it. So I ended up working 70 hours that week to basically remake my app from scratch, minus Bootstrap. And when I got it done, they said this isn't what they wanted. Because most of the fields that I was given weren't actually part of the requirements. So somebody in HR accidentally gave me the wrong form for what I was supposed to get, and Tima no longer talks to us as a company. And don't worry, I got all the flack for it. So, because I'm an intern, obviously. So, as of then, I am not allowed to take other car companies' requirements anymore. And if you ever ask me why I hate Tima, that is why.
Oh, I've got plenty of IT war stories to share. Actually, is anyone recording this? Because there's some that I could share that I probably shouldn't share on the web. Just because of non-disclosure agreements? Okay. All right. Well, I can talk about my first ever sort of, I guess, kind of IT job. Well, yeah, it was IT. So back when I was 13, I was a very young entrepreneur. I joined a local computer shop, learning how to, just learned how to more or less repair computers, and just like wanted to get my hands dirty. This is back in the days of, I'm 32 now, so this is back in the days of like when AT and ATX were form factors, and yeah, there you go. And we had tons of parts, all that stuff, so it was really fun. It's a lot of like learning environment. But this is also, to give you a place setting, this is in the deep south in Fairhope, Alabama. So yeah, you can already start to get a picture of like the fun IT stuff that I had to do. And I'll never forget a customer brought in a computer and didn't turn on, but I noticed there was some physical damage on the case. Now this is back in the days when it was entirely steel cases. They were like really big. They had like mid-size boxes and stuff, but yeah, so they'd like plopped it down on the counter, and I was called out from the back to go check it out, and it says dented on the side. I'm like, okay. And I said, well, whatever, we'll just take it in and check it out. He's like, yeah, it doesn't turn on. I'm like, okay, that's about the best I got. They gave me a couple of the potential passwords in case I needed to get into it to run defragmentation or whatnot, because you really had to do that back in the day. And I take it to the back and I open it up. I had trouble opening it up because it was that badly dented on the side that I couldn't easily slide the cover off of the computer. And then once I finally got it free without hurting myself, which is a lot of sharp edges in those things, I realized, at least I started piecing together what happened, because the inside of the computer was filled with dirt. It's like, I don't know why this is in here, and the system is dented pretty heavily on the side. So I called up the customer because we had their information and everything, and I said, hey, so I'm looking at your computer and already noticing, like, I think I know why it doesn't turn on. I mean, it looks like there's some like water damage to the inside, and also I'm seeing dirt inside there. How did that get in there? Oh, I took it out back and I kicked it because it wasn't working. That's what I do to everything else. It makes my motors work, so I figured that would do everything it needed to. And it didn't work out. It's still not working. It's like, yeah. And there's a similar one to that where I was finding dead animals inside of computers, like snakes, rats. Yeah, that same customer with the dirt in the computer and all that stuff too. Yeah, the board on the side and everything was pretty much fried out, so it got totally wet and soaked, and I had to explain to him why he basically had to buy a new computer, most of a new computer. He didn't like that answer at all. My boss actually ended up sticking up for him and not me. That was, yeah, I was, as a 13-year-old kid, like working in the shop to try to like learn how to rebuild computers, so that I didn't get treated that well. There's more horror stories I could tell from a different company, but I'm not entirely sure I could tell because of like certain non-disclosure agreements. I guess I could like generalize it and say like, I've had to deal with this and this. So one other one in particular. So there's two. One will make you all squick out. So I'm apologizing in advance because Drager's about to fill in here. Hi, Drager. So this is the other panelist, by the way. I was working at this store, which shall not be named. And
is it fruity?
Shh.
I know the name. It's Kumquat, right?
Yes. So I was working at this place and do computer repair there. So this was back, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago now at this point. And we were doing data transfers, which we always do. But when we do, we go computer to computer, importing things like pictures and stuff like that from a hard drive or whatever they give us will flash onto the screen. So like we'll just leave the computers in the back somewhere, and all that. Yeah, you're figuring out where this is going to go. So we had the setup and everything, and we normally like cover it up with a piece of paper or whatever, because it can be like family photos, whatever. It doesn't need to be seen by everyone back there. I happened to be going to the back for something else while this other data transfer is going on, and I happened to look over at a particular time, because it just happened to be like really weird timing. I looked over, I was like, oh yeah, the data transfer is still going. Wait, what's that picture? And then I call over my boss at the time, and I said, hey, did that look odd to you just now? And then we both look at it, and then something else flashes up on the screen. And I don't know how to describe this.
All right, so we're PG-13.
Yeah, we're PG-13. I'm trying to make sure it's PG-13.
So, like, you know those playgrounds with, like, the jungle gyms and things? Yeah, imagine if they did one for adults.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so these photos involve children. Yeah, you can guess. So at that point, we had to make a phone call to the local PD. That was fun. And then they had to come in. I had to get interviewed. This whole thing. Oh yeah, it was a mess. Because I think I wasn't the one who actually took in the computer, but then they actually came to the store to figure out what was going on with their data transfer. And we're like, oh hi, you must meet these new police officers who would like to talk with you. Yeah. Oh, that was. They sent me home that day because I was like mortified by what I saw on the screen. Me and my boss, we both actually got sent home for like grief. Because yeah, that's probably one of the worst ones I've seen so far. Other than there's another one that had cocaine in it that was also fun to call in. Because we were like, what's this bag with white powder in it? Oh, yeah, we shouldn't touch that anymore. Let's call the cops. People leave the darndest things inside their computer drives. Like, apparently that's where someone's stash was.
I mean, I'm
okay.
assuming that person was a Wall Street trader.
I have no idea. I have no
Was
idea.
that Alkali's laptop?
That was a tower, so maybe he needed a bigger stash. All right, I'll hand that over.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Martini. He's a super smart tech person. And he's also a Mormon Westie.
All right, go wander around the con. Have fun.
Thank you again, Martini, for filling in for Trager here.
So speaking of IT horror stories, when you have a lack of, tech, and you do scheduling at a con, that requires the human computer to solve things. So I was scheduled for a panel from 4 to 5:30 and for a panel from 5 to 6. Hi! But yeah, so...
Hashtag blame Huskoon.
Hashtag blame Huskoon. Tease him, it's okay. So, I guess, let's see. Should I share the silliest story I've encountered or the most expensive story I've encountered?
Silly.
You guys want to...
Why don't we have both?
Well, I'll do one now and one later. Which one do you want now?
Silly.
So before I really got into programming, I interned doing tech support at a place. And this company provided tech support for other companies. It wasn't just regular end users. The company that this was providing tech support for was a company called Deluxe Checks. So like if you get checkbooks and you've got the little box that's like the red pattern with the black stripe or whatever, it was for that company. So we're in there, I'm just this little kid that's getting the, the tutorial and everything, and we had this big old screen dashboard that would show the calls coming in. And we had a phone system set up where we knew who it was that was calling in, or at least like whose phone it was. Sometimes it was someone else at that phone. And we'd have things flagged as VIP. So VIP is like, you have to handle this call fast, fast, fast. You have to get a resolution. You can't just pass the buck. The only reason you pass the buck is you need to escalate. A VIP comes in. It's my first one. I see other people get them and they handle it just fine. The VIP comes in and I look up her information, and this person is the vice president of sales at Deluxe Checks. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can be polite, right? Forks knows I'm rarely polite. So game face on, going. She's just soft-spoken. It's like, hi, can you help me? I'm like, yeah, sure, what's up? Like, well, I'm having an issue with my computer. Okay, expand, please. Well, it crashed. Like, okay, well, do you know what program you were using when it crashed? And there's a pause. And then I hear the following. Program? Is that like Windows? Reach for the mute button while I giggle like an idiot. The corollary to that story is the guy who was in the cube next to me, within that same week, got a different VIP call, and a similarly silly thing happened. Someone was having trouble with their mouse. Wasn't working. Just couldn't figure it out. It was behaving really weird and slow. It took forever to get things going. We're just trying to pull teeth out of what the actual issue is, and we discover the following. Who here knows what mice used to be like before? Who here knows what a ball mouse is? You use a ball mouse like this. This person had the ball mouse flipped over and was pushing the ball with their finger, and the click would rock the mouse into the desk. We figured that out, and, well, this technician thought he pressed mute. This technician did not successfully press mute when he started cackling and making fun of this person. They heard everything. I did not see the technician that week, or the next week. Be very careful what you say, guys. As funny as it is, some VPs don't take kindly to being made fun of for their lack of technical skills. Do you have one, or should I ask for one from the audience?
I can go for one more.
Do it!
All right, so I, on the contrary, do have an expensive story. You know what $400,000 looks like when everything blows up?
Yes.
All right, so we were working on a very secure internal app to make it so that our software has many versions, and we wanted a way to keep all of our data centralized so that we don't have to keep upgrading the data between versions. So the way that we do this is we would have a web app, because web apps are pretty much constant, you don't have to update them very often, and the data's there in a SQL database. Super tight, super secure, we got this. So what happened was, we decided to use TypeScript without a compiler.
Look, I've heard a lot of dumb things in my life. Go on.
All right, so our project manager didn't really understand what TypeScript was. He just understood it was the latest thing. And he had very specific, he had a design document that was very specific, one of which was explicitly, do not put a compiler on it because it would quote unquote slow us down. So what we ended up having to do was have our own private compiler that we never told him about, and never tell him what was taking him so long on certain builds. All right, so this software is supposed to go across many versions of our software. It's basically a pull and get of any kind of data that they want. It's custom-made rows and fields based on whatever the customer wants. They're generated on the fly. It's super amazing. And I commend whoever the person was who actually decided to implement that. Anyway, what ended up happening was one of the people involved was not exactly professional and what we refer to as a duct tape coder. If you don't know what that is, it is a coder that is very good at getting things done, but not very well. So he was one of the lead people on this project. So one day, as we're getting, this thing has like a 9-month period of getting things done. So we have plenty of time to get this baked. So as we're getting towards the final, I want to say the home stretch, one day we're in staging. So we have customers that are using this. They one day submit a support ticket for, we can't get our data. All right, so we rotate support people from developers because we're a very small company. I was on support that time, and I asked, okay, what's wrong? And they said, 404 not found. Okay, so hold on. I tell him to hold on a second. I go and get one of our lead developers, and he says, yeah, everything should be fine. And I say, go to the dashboard. And he said, yeah, we have 100% uptime. And by 100%, I mean infinity, because he didn't know how to parse JavaScript properly. All right, so.
Who here are JavaScript people in here? Or just any programmers in general? For those of you who don't know, JavaScript does this nifty thing where when you mess up numbers, interesting things happen, and sometimes infinity happens when you really don't want it to.
And sometimes you get NaN, that's my favorite one, which stands for not a number.
But if you type it, it's still a number.
JavaScript is weird. Anyway, I say, okay, go and see one of our records. And he caches his records. So when he goes to see his data, everything is still there and fine. And I say, when's the last time you updated this? Yesterday. I say, okay, remove your cache from your browser and give me what's today. Empty rows. Said, so, the reason I brought up TypeScript earlier is because I found out we also coded our endpoints in TypeScript. So what we were giving to our customers was broken JavaScript. So, as we were going along, we basically had a fire at that point. And by fire, I mean, in the IT world, that means something's broke, we have to fix it right now. So I go and ask our other lead developer for what happened, and he said, oh yeah, I implemented a new type of TypeScript compiler that is completely new and it's 100% foolproof. And I say, what version is it on? 0.01. All right, so as I'm going, so it was my job then to rip out that compiler that I writ, which by the way, we have to distribute this to all of our customers that were using it at that point. So try telling somebody who doesn't use a computer very often how to put files somewhere. Spoiler alert, they usually don't know what a C drive is.
Yeah, I see the drive. No joke, that is not a joke. I have had that said to me. Yeah. Like, we all think in tech, like, yes, that's an obvious pun. And the person didn't, it went in their ear, and like, yes, I see the drive. Straight-faced. It's really hard on the other end to go,
So, when I gave them instructions on how to put the files there, with pictures included for every step, thank God for screen cap, I distribute to everybody, and then, okay, what do we do about the data that was gone? We can back it up, but most of our customers are going to complain that they don't have data from the previous day. One person had the bright idea to say, spoof it. And I said, are you crazy? He says, no, this is, if we make it look like it was the next day's thing, they aren't going to notice. We went along with this plan. I was a very busy person on support that day. So we had trucks that went across the continent in 2 hours. We had airplanes that landed in the ocean. And we had hurricanes in the Great Lakes. So, I don't know who was in charge of spoofing that data, but I commend them for their vigilance.
Oh, that was silly. All right, did you guys survey the audience at all, or just start telling the story?
Just start telling stories.
Okay, so who in here is in tech in some way, shape, or form? All right, for the rest of you, do you interact with tech or a tech team at all? Of those people, how much do you hate the people you interact with on the tech teams? The feeling's mutual, don't worry.
When you call your data center to get information, and they're like, oh, I don't know, hold on. Consecutively.
While that is annoying, to be perfectly honest with you, I would rather hear, I don't know, hold on, which means they're hopefully going to find out, rather than, oh yeah, it's this, and this is wrong.
Hold on. Click. That's what happens.
Well, to a certain extent, I admire just the straight up balls of that. I mean, that means of that data center, they are so comfortable with their money, they're like, so what if they leave? We don't need them. I don't want to work that hard. So we talked about one that cost money. I'll just go right into this other one, and then I'm going to fish for you guys for some stories. Who knows what the story I'm going to go into is one that hit the news decently big if you're in the financial world. This was many years ago. Who knows what the Chicago Mercantile Exchange is? So you've heard of the stock exchange in general, you've heard of NASDAQ and things. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange in particular has basically the world's biggest futures and options trading platform. Out of college, I ended up weaseling my way in there in some way, shape, or form, and I worked on that trading system. And I was there long enough to really get in, do performance optimizations and things, and Before I went into programming, I thought I was going to be a network security engineer. So just everything, IP addresses, doing your hardware layouts, load balancer configs, basically relearning how, at the time when I was in school, if someone said, oh no, the internet fell apart, we have to build it from scratch, that's essentially what I was studying to do. Turned out I liked it more as a hobby than a job. So me as a 22-year-old comes into this place, and I'm the youngest person there by 12 years. Like they were just really getting caught up in tech. Like, oh, I guess we do need fresh blood. So the first thing I do at any job I'm in is really not good, but I essentially load up a terminal and start seeing what servers I can get into. I don't do anything malicious. I never have done anything malicious on a job, but boy am I curious. So I found out that me, in my first month on the job, could remote into, with root privileges, the live production running servers. It wasn't the easiest thing to do. I figured this out, and it took 4 servers to hop through to do it. But once you know how to do it, anyone can just sit there and go, oh, yeah, I can bring down production. To give you an example, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars of trades going on per hour. So this is kind of the setting I was in. I bring this up, like, hey, guys, you need to set up your VLANs proper, and you need to have proper authentication based on user IDs, like everything you're doing there. I used myself as an example, like, guys, I can get into the root machines. And they're like, don't do that. Like, they got mad at me because I could. They did not fix the problem. A year later, this news story broke. The following happened. We log everything at that company. So every trade that happens, everything is logged, and so if any weirdness happens in terms of the trading world, they can replay and see what happened and correct accordingly. So when they run tests for new rollouts, the final test before putting things into production is using prod captured data. Now it's still test data, things are changed and munged, but it's just about as real as can be. Someone who ran a test over the weekend had a server misconfigured for where they were going to send all of this data. You're talking about so much data, it takes hours just to inject it all to kick off these tests. Because one person misconfigured an IP, they sent all of this test data into production on the live trading system. Now by default, this shouldn't have been too bad of a problem, except they sent so much data, almost 10% of the trades actually matched real clients. The rest was bunk. It was so bad, it actually impacted the markets. And traders started reacting to this test data that started going on. Here's another bit of information. The Chicago futures and options market, who here knows anything about trading at all? So what happens is there's an aspect to trading called a closing house. And the closing house are the ones that actually reconcile trades, mismatches, and what have you. So the closing house is the one that says, no, you messed up, you owe this. Oh, you messed up, this person's going to pay you this. This company was their own closing house. So everything they matched came directly out of that company's pockets. They stopped midday trades once they saw what was going on. So essentially this company makes money by the second. They make a small fraction off of every trade that goes. So if the trading system is down, not only are they not making money, they have service level agreements with all of their clients that says, we owe you X amount for every literal second that the system is down. The end result was I watched a lot of executives running back and forth in front of my cube, screaming at each other, going, what is going on? Oh, I have never... These are people that are calm, collected, they wear very expensive suits, they drink expensive whiskeys. These people were running around like chickens with their heads cut off. They did not know. Back and forth going. The end result is they paid all of it out of pocket. It was bad. Everyone including, and other than production dev teams, or production DevOps, lost all access. Like they couldn't even do their own dev stuff because we have to harden everything. We can't let this happen again. There's an all team meeting about a month later once the mess is cleared. Every financial news organization has picked up and said, yeah, someone ran a test and trades were matched. Oopsie. Several people lost jobs over that one. In the all-team meeting, they were laying out the new way of how to get at production logs. The whole reason this was like that to begin with, someone couldn't be bothered to give read-only access to server logs. So in this whole meeting, I go and raise my hand, and then the person who was running the whole meeting goes, "We know you told us." And I'm just beaming. I'm like, okay, do I have to sit through the rest of this? I'm like, no, you know better. I just got to go out. This was a 4-hour meeting on how to properly manage things. I went back to my desk and just surfed the web for 4 hours. That was millions upon millions of dollars of an oops. I'm just really happy it wasn't my fault. So anyone in the audience, any of you guys either party to a short little story of an IT horror story or an oops, either that was, oops, your fault, or you got to witness someone else go down in flames?
So I recently stopped interning for a company. It's a small company, but they deal with like millions of dollars a day. And me and my boss, we're building an admin panel for the CEO of that company, so we can like monitor all the money he's getting. And we got to a point where we actually need like real-ish data to test the admin panel. So we're sitting and we get an email from him, and it's a Google Doc link to a spreadsheet. I'm like, okay, what's this? And we open the Google Doc, and it is 650 rows of live client data with names, card numbers, expiration dates, and security codes. We immediately wiped our computers at that point.
So, one of the oopses you encounter, you guys have all seen the IFC website, you've seen the reg system. It's myself and a board member from First Squared. We wrote it. So if you hate it or see problems with it, blame me. If you like the Indie FurCon website, just the regular, the 80s theme and everything. Who here was at opening ceremonies, by the way? He did it. He did it. For those of you that don't know, there was a countdown on the Indie FurCon website, and it went to 0. Everyone got rickrolled at opening ceremonies. Also, if you were at home watching the counter on your phone or computer, you too got rickrolled. We heard some people's phones going off in the audience while it happened at opening ceremonies. He did it. To be fair, I found out what he was doing and I let it go. So I have just as much fault as anyone else. But to what he's talking about, one of the scary things with registration is, who here knows what COPPA is? C-O-P-P-A? Those are an interesting set of laws that determine what you can and can't do and how much in trouble you're going to be if you collect information on anyone who is under 13 through the internet. So we have an open reg system, and we tell everyone you have to be 13 or over to register for this site, to go through and do this, to get your badge. In early versions of the website, we had a widget for the calendar that was a lot smarter than what we have now. For any of you who registered, it's just a stupid little text box. You have to format it just right, and if you don't, it yells at you, and it's really annoying. The reason it went back to that is the following. The widget we were using, which sometimes relied on, it was kind of dumb. If you used a smartphone, it would do a cool date picker thing for you. Well, it turns out there is a version of iOS and Safari out there that had an interesting render bug that would bypass certain date checks. And when it should tell you, oh, you're under 13, you can't do this, it sent the data anyway, and it got into a state on our server where we saved it anyway. So one day, one of us is just going through the server, going through our reg data, and sorts by birth date, and we see someone who's like, oh, they got the year wrong. It says they're 10, it's supposed to be someone else. So we go through and we email out. And we get a response back that clearly is from a kid. I don't know if you guys have ever read Terms of Service, but you're not allowed to have a Gmail account if you're under 13. This person did. We had their first name, last name, address, and birthday. You know how he said he wiped the systems? Oh, we scrubbed really hard. I run everything on a virtual machine, so I took all the proper reg info for the good regs since the last checkpoint, and I blew everything away. I reinstalled the server, put the last good image back, and through the grapevine, found the kid's parents and told them, yeah, we just gave him an email address to make it easier. And then when I asked about, well, what about the credit card? I'm like, oh, well, they wanted to go, so it's just easier. So scary things like that can happen. For any of you who are in tech, be very, very careful. Anyone can send anything to your server, and if you log it, regardless of whether it was sent to you intentionally or not, it still can be your fault if the data's there, especially when it comes to minors. I have never, my mate saw me when I figured out what was going on, and I'm already a pale person. He's like, where'd your freckles go? It went away, there were no traces. We told the parents, we did all the proper disclosures and everything. It's not like you're completely screwed, but it can be scary. And the fines can be incredibly potent. Does anyone else have any silly encounter? Oh, you're all the way back there. Can you be loud, or do you want to come up here?
I tried to raise my hand once, but I don't think you can see me, so this time I turned off.
Okay, no, I mean, like, can you make sure everyone hears you, or do you want to just come up here and then face everyone?
You guys can read my hand, or?
Come up here.
I'm back here because I'm charging my phone, so.
Well, you can leave the phone. It'll still be there.
I see you say that, but...
It'll still be there.
Like, up there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know very much about tech. I like to go to these panels. I like to go to these panels because I like hearing other people's mistakes, because it kind of makes me feel better about myself. And I used to work at the zoo in Louisville, and whenever you go into the zoo, you buy tickets, obviously, and that was my job. But we used a different system than what I was used to with both cash registers, because it wasn't like a cash register system. There were different buttons and everything. And my bosses sucked. And if we were really, really busy, they would just tell you, okay, don't check information, just keep going. So that leads to problems, obviously. And what he was talking about with gathering minors under 13's information, we had the issue of one day somebody comes into the office and we all kind of get in trouble because apparently not checking information led to people's credit cards being used without their permission and that kind of stuff. So that's one thing. And the other thing was I kind of accidentally took down the register system once. I don't know exactly how I did it still, but sometimes they went slow, and I hit the back button a few too many times, and a screen popped up that I didn't know what it was, but it had something about admin, something, and I kept hitting back, and I deleted something.
That is not your fault. That is the system admins and developers' fault.
I don't know what it was. No one told me what it was. They literally grabbed my shoulders and escorted me away from my computer. So I still don't know what I did, but I deleted something, and we couldn't take credit cards for the rest of the day and couldn't sell tickets for about 2 hours. So that was fun. I have
Well,
more
thank you for that.
That's not a bug, that's a feature.
Sorry.
All right, so I have another story, and this one is a bit it's a bit lighter than the other stories because I was about 3 years into development, and so I was assigned to a new project that was a plugin for our main software. If you don't know, we're a software company that basically just sells a different version of the same software over and over again. So, what was that? Oh, yeah, that's pretty much it. We're subscription-based too.
We're running low on funds. What do? Release a new version. What changed? The version number.
We got 5.5, we got 5.5.1, 5.551.0.2.
Okay, we do have to get the rest of the panel.
All right. All right, so I'm assigned to this new plugin thing, and it's from a repo that somebody else had already started this project, and what? Oh. All right, so somebody else had already started this project, and I was assigned to basically update it and maintain it. All right, so I pull it from our source repository, which is basically just a way that we keep all of our stuff in a server and make sure that everybody can update it anytime they want. So when I get this version, I go to the other person. Obviously, pull the other person who worked on the project if they're still there, because they're the ones who knows the most about how to work with it. So I go and grab this person. We'll call her Melody. I grab Melody and I ask her to come to my desk and say, "Hey, how does this app work? I was just assigned to it." She says, "Oh, it's as simple as installing it into our main software and running this console application." I was like, "Okay, cool." And this console application also installs test data. All right, most console apps do. So she had to walk away because she had to go to a meeting, so I immediately got to work. I installed a plugin into my machine, and I started the console app. It says, install test data. Pretty simple, right? I go through the console app, I add the test data to my system, and then about 5 minutes later, our CEO, our project manager, and her all barrel right to my desk in a very, very fast fashion. So I am freaking out, and I say, "Oh my God, what did I do? What do I do?" And then they said, "We just got something that said test on production." If you don't know what production is, that means it's what faces the customers and you gave it to them. So I'm freaking out, and it says, "Okay, what was the problem?" We left deployment test data on this build so that anybody who pulled it, if they ran those commands, could push test to our production server. And I don't mean just like test data, I mean things that actually said test. So if you didn't know, it didn't show up on my system the first time. So I thought, oh, maybe it's just broken a bit, or maybe it didn't reach my server. I'll run it a few more times. So, I think I tried it maybe 30, maybe 40 times. Next thing I know, our help desk is slammed with calls. And they're all asking, did something break? What happened? Are you guys testing something in live servers? You know you're not supposed to do that. And they said, no. We just pushed test data to... No, I forget, they made some kind of cover story for it. It was something like, oh, we were just running the latest version of our software on your server just for you because we thought you deserved it. They didn't deserve it. So then I found out that the old person who worked, Melody, I forgot, was the person who worked on this. She left test data in our configuration for it that pushed it directly from the console app to the production server that anybody could access, apparently. So it was just a simple push this data through a port on this IP address. And then we found out it was a security concern at that point, so I wasn't allowed to touch the code for a solid 3 days until every single one of those configuration data from each and every snapshot of that project was gone. I was very bored for 3 days. So then I found out, okay, let's try it again. I went to the very first version and I did it again. Next thing I know, why is there test on our server? That I don't remember seeing her very often for the next month and a half.
That's it.
So another Reg one. This was a few years ago. This was for Squared in particular. The evolution of emoji has been a very interesting thing. Some of the details behind it. So when you see a character, every character behind the scenes in computer code is essentially represented by a number. One of the older silly ways, and it's still useful, but it was just a limitation at the time. If you had 8 bits, 1 byte, you could have up to 255 characters. If your number is longer, you get more and more and more. And then there's things like, some things take only 1 byte of data to draw a character, some things take 2 bytes, and some take 3, and some take 4. And a lot of that has taken, as those new features and things roll out, not every system is the same. Now, phones needing to be latest and greatest, both Apple and Android released essentially, when you see a font where you see characters and it's like, oh, well, how do you make sure everyone's Russian characters are the same? How do you make sure everyone's Japanese characters are the same? How do you make sure everyone's emoji characters are the same? Oh wait, not all emoji characters were the same. Because Apple and Google started releasing font sets with it without any tech community backing. They just did it and turned it on. Because hey, people need to have 500 different smiley faces. The code points for that got very interesting. One of the critical things that no one really knew, especially myself, was what happens when it hits your system. Now, traditionally what would happen when weird characters came in is if your character encoding or if your font set wasn't supported, if someone tried to do Japanese characters or whatever, you probably have seen it. You see like question marks sometimes, or you see that empty rectangle, or you see this weird diamond thing with a question mark in it. Okay, no big deal. Well, we got hit with a Twitter storm and a lot of people reporting to us that our site was down. Okay, something went wrong, let's go look. Can't find anything obvious. All right, well, we're gonna do a deploy to a fresh server and see what's going on. We do a deploy to a fresh server and everything's working just fine. Okay, well, we go and load in some test data. Everything's fine, we have no idea what's going on. We start going through a couple of snapshots and seeing what's going on. At this point, we're going well into a weekend because we're doing this after hours. We have day jobs. This is a passion project for us. So you're talking the site's down for days at this point. We just tell people, tweet out, we don't know, we're still 4 months away from con. We'll let you know when it comes back. Put up a static page in the meantime, Reg is closed. We get to the weekend and we're like, okay, we have 50 snapshots. We have to go through them one by one to see which one break. So my friend goes through starting at the beginning, going forward, and I start going backwards. And we find one, we're like, okay, well, it works on this one and not on this one. And we can't figure out what's wrong. We're going and looking at things. We have all of these logs. All the logs look fine. Eventually we start looking at other system logs, like, okay, well, the code seems fine. The server itself seems fine. The database runs, but there's gotta be something. It's getting something weird out of it. There's different databases. There's Microsoft SQL Server, there's Postgres, there's SQLite, and then there's MySQL, MySQL. Turns out, at the time, if you got one of these out-of-bounds weird emoji characters, it would write it into the database and would then corrupt the database. So someone on a phone went, I'm a Reg with this smiley, and it, honest to goodness, crashed our server irreparably. We use Postgres now and we don't have that problem. Just a silly one that I cursed emoji for a long, long time. I still do a little bit, but it's a little bit more uniform now. Let's see. Does anyone else, we got about 10 minutes, silly commentary, interactions. Otherwise I can just keep blabbing about tech stuff for days.
Emoji movie sucks.
Why did you go see it? Don't give them money. Oh, okay. Oh, you're just saying you heard about it and your gut reaction was the Emoji movie sucked. Yeah, that's a safe assessment to make.
You want just a quick one? Because let's face it, screw up computers, you really need the military to do that.
Yes, please.
All right. For those of you that don't know me, I am Commander Kitsune, aka Commander Wise. I am a U.S. Navy commander. About 15 years ago, I was part of the night shift on an international exercise. Now, in the military, we have what's known as NIPRNet, which is our unclassified network, and then we have SuperNet, that's the secure internet. The two shall never meet. So when you have to do patching or anything like that, you had to put everything on a floppy disk, take it from that system, put it into the secure network, load everything there, and then you had to destroy the floppy disk because even though you read only, it's touched a secure system, it shall never go back to an unsecure system. And my guys come running into me because we had a certain time during the exercise we were allowed to patch the servers. Commander Wise, the web server's down. And I've got basically all of the Pacific looking to this server for the exercise information. And they're like, it's saying NT loader not found.
Oh, God.
Okay, the operating system is gone from the web server. This is not a good thing. So I'm like, all right, let me get back there because I do IT, been doing it for 40 years. Walk back there and I stand looking at the servers. I'm like, guys, really? I reach down and I push the button for the floppy disk. They had never taken the floppy disk out. They tried to reboot the server. So we're ready to say, oh my God, we've got 5 different countries here that can't read information. I'm like, I just pop the button and the disk pops out and goes on the floor. And I hit the power button to recycle it. I'm like, and they look at me and they're like, sir, we're sorry. I'm like, don't even say it. It's like, it's fixed. I don't care. I'm not gonna have the general coming down saying, so Commander, how would you like to be now a Lieutenant Commander again? We'll just move you down. So it's the little things like that I've learned. Always look, is the disk in the disk drive? Oh yeah, let's pop that out first. It might work a little better.
It's not an exaggeration why one of the first troubleshooting techniques seriously is, have you tried turning it off and on again? That is rooted in truth. It really does work.
And then is it plugged in?
Well, yes. We get those tech support calls. Another one, someone was mentioning something about phones. I think you were actually. And it's made the rounds in tech circles, but you know you have a problem when either all of the phones are ringing or none of the phones are ringing. You had your hand up?
I had a question.
Yes.
Has there been any moment you've like maliciously messed with somebody, like just messing with them, not like cause harm?
I absolutely have screwed with people. That job I was talking about where I was fresh and doing tech support with the lugged checks person, the guy that ended up getting fired for laughing at a VIP, he was never thorough in his work. And he was always, you know, like, oh, I'm so great, and then just made mistakes all the time. So at one point, I made a suggestion to my boss about a prank to pull because he was on vacation. This is not an original prank. I'd read about it somewhere else, but we did do it to this guy. So he went away and he comes back and he's trying to use his computer. Nothing's working. It's like, I can't open my browser. I can't open my email. I can't open the ticketing system. What's going on? But like he's muttering to himself about it. So someone would come over and be like, hey, do you need help with something? And no, he's the hot shot. It's like, dude, you go away, go away. So he's struggling for hours until finally, and we all knew we'd pulled a prank on him. And so people kept coming by, every last person. People that weren't even on our team were like, hey, go by and ask him if he needs help. And so finally it's like, oh my God, why does everyone keep asking me? And he's like slamming his keyboard down. So what I had suggested was, hey, do you think he'd notice if we took away all of his icons and replaced his desktop background with a screenshot? It was as far as he didn't notice the clock. I had everything. I even hit the Windows toolbar. At that version of Windows we had, you could actually disable the Windows start bar from even showing up. And you had to know the right command shortcut to bring up a launcher to kick it off. So he had no start menu. It was there. He'd try clicking on it and nothing would happen. But the mouse would still move. He was rebooting everything. And he never noticed that the time on the clock was always the same. So yes, I have messed with people, but I have never cost people money. The most I've done is, I've done a little bit of white hat stuff here and there. I've anonymously, released disclosures to places like, hey, you have this security problem. In college, I did an anonymous disclosure to a place. Any of you in Chicago from here? That was a weird statement. Any of you in here from Chicago? Yay! Okay, well, there's a Chicago pizza place that's pretty well known. It's just called Chicago's. They tried jumping the gun of Grubhub and everything and doing online ordering. And they were not secure in anything at all. It was very easy. You couldn't quite do URL hacking on them, but if you opened up a browser and changed the post requests, you could do a lot of strange things with modifying your points you've accrued on your account and applying coupons, even if they're expired. So I found out, a bunch of friends of mine, I'm like, oh, what do I owe for pizza? And they're like, oh, you don't owe anything. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, well, we just set our points to get a free pizza. I'm like, well, what do you mean? They went and showed me what they did. Now, I didn't want to tell them that I went and tattled and ratted them out. It was really simple. They opened from their command line. They just put the URL in to place an order. They told the server how many points they had. They didn't say, oh, we're going to try and do this, and then the server looks on its own backend. The server just trusted whatever was thrown at it. Now, for the average person, that's fine, but we were a bunch of network engineering students, so we wanted to tinker and play. So it's one thing to do it and be like, oh, I did this, and then you call them and be like, hey, I want to pay for this, but by the way, please patch your systems. So I submitted it anonymously, and they did patch it pretty quickly after that. They couldn't figure out who it was. They just thought, it's like, oh, they must have just finally figured it out because they abused it. They got a lot of free pizzas, and by free pizzas, they were stealing pizzas. So that wasn't good. I made an anonymous drop to a professor that was going on in one of the security classes we were in. Our professor, he came in, there was no projector, he closed the door, he told everyone to put their laptops away, put their phones away, all that jazz, and read everyone in that room the riot act. He didn't give any names, I didn't give any names, I just said, hey, by the way, this is something that happened. And his particular speech was, just because you're capable, or even if someone might be deserving of to be futzed with, at the end of the day, if you're doing anything in computer programming or network engineering, if you do something like that once, that means you essentially have a blemish on your record. That means if you've done it once, you could do it again. So I'm very serious when I say I have never caused anyone harm or cost anyone money, because even as a kid in college, that will follow you if someone finds out. So, a prank is fine. If you find something or you do something accidentally, disclose it. If you think it's risky to disclose it because someone might, try and retaliate against you, because even though you're reporting the problem, some people do really like to shoot the messenger, make a best effort. But if what you do yourself is never malicious, you will be okay. I really do mean that to this panel. I didn't really mean to get serious, but he asked a really good question about that, so I feel it's important to say something like that. All right, we have 1 minute left, so sorry to kind of end on a downer, but I hope you guys enjoyed. If you see either of us, ask us about tech stuff, we'll respond. Hope you guys enjoyed yourselves, and have fun at the rest of the con.